Welcome to Psychology of Pilgrimage. Today I'm talking with Radek Havelka, who is from Prague, outside of Prague in the Czech Republic. Radek is in the IT sector and has been an analyst and developer and has an interest in military history and travel to France. And all of these areas have intersected in the place of a website that he's created. He's the sole owner and developer of a website, www.valka.cz, or the English version, which is www.armedconflicts.com. So thank you so much, Radek, for being here and for taking the time to speak with me about your interest in military history, your interest specifically in World War I, which is where we first met, actually almost exactly in the place that you are in front of, on the street that's leading into the Oise-Aisne American Cemetery. You were there with a friend or colleague, and I'd love to hear a little more about you and what draws you to France and what draws you to your interest in military history.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me, for having me in this podcast. It's quite an honor for me because I've been watching you for all these years. We've met on the cemetery, as you mentioned. A little about me, as you said, I'm an IT guy. I'm developer and IT manager in last 30 years, and a fan of military history for as long as I'm aware of, as long as I'm alive. Because my father and my brother deeply influenced me to read the books about history, about our fighter pilots in RAF, our bomber pilots in Royal Air Force during the Second World War. With my brother, I built like the small model planes, those kids stuff, and it grew up. And as I start to do websites, I wanted to build something of my own. And at that time, it was like 1998. It was something we called like wild, wild west of internet. Just Google has just been born 1998. And we used to search in a website called Alta Vista using Netscape as a browser. So yeah, I'm that old. And I wanted to create some website of my own, and I registered the name valka.cz because Valka means war in Czech language. And at that time, it was time of wars in Yugoslavia and later in Kosovo. And I discovered the urge to do something about it, to publish and to collect the information. It was nothing like we know today, like the CNN online and stuff like that. We watched the TV and read the newspaper and stuff like that. And the internet was very, very sectioned or partitioned into small pieces. It was GeoCities. Everybody who wanted to build a website did build a website. And everybody was doing his small work on like one specific topic. And I wanted to bridge them and to create something to bring all the military history fans into one site and to gather the knowledge and interconnect the knowledge and also connect the people as well. So I start to build it, and in few years, people start to join me. I ask them if I can reuse and republish their articles. Some created the new ones just for me, just for the website. And we started to meet in like 2003. We had first gathering of people, and it was really funny because if you go to a specific place and to the pub where we decided to meet, and you never met somebody because it was only online. We existed only in the virtual space, and we didn't know how we will look like, and is it the guy with the bag, or is it the guy in the military uniform, or like who is it, who it will be, is it him or not? And so it was pretty like nice encounter, and we enjoyed it a lot and start to meet regularly. And I then moved to France for 6 months because of my work. And I realized I was living in Paris, but I realized that Paris is too crowded for me and too many people. Although I love it as a city, like the architecture and stuff, I hate it to be in like everyday plenty of people around me all the time. So we try to move to the countryside every single weekend. So we went to Brittany, we went to Normandy, we even took the train to United Kingdom and back just for the weekend to Southampton. And so I had the time to discover all the places in northern France, in Normandy, because it was like my primary interest. Second World War, everybody read about the Omaha Beach and stuff like that. I wanted to see it by myself. And later on, we also start to travel with my wife the places of First World War, because it was kind of unknown to me. I know it happened. I know it happened in the area of Belgium and northern France and all these, trench war and stuff like that. But I never had the idea of the scale of it and the losses of it. And so I started to travel. And when I got back from France, I organized first like travel with my friends. We took a bus and like sold one half of the bus just for us, and the other half of the bus we took like other people with us who wanted to do the travel. And since then I've been to France for about like 12 or 13 times. So every other year I try to go, and I do visit the places sometimes more often. Like I've been to Normandy beaches like 8 times maybe during the season and during the anniversaries, but also outside the season because there are quite like many people in there, and there are many restrictions during these celebrations as well. But we also try to add new places to see, and I'm traveling either just with my friends, with my wife, or we like recently are having like 5 cars full of people and we go to different places, and this gives us a little bit more like ability to go wherever we want to go. If you want to go to the museum, you go to museum. If you want to go to hotel and have some rest, you go. So it's more flexible this way. And this is where we met 3 years ago, where we just split from rest of our group because my friends had to go back to work. After first week, we spent in Netherlands and in Belgium and France, and we decided to take another week for these additional travel and places to see. We did a lot of cathedrals and castles, and also museums, and of course the cemeteries, because that was the main point of our travel. So this is how I got to the place where we met, and this is a long journey of trying to understand what happened in the area during the First World War, what happened in the Second World War, to pay some respect to the soldiers and from all the countries, not specifically like Americans as we've met, but we visited the only Czech cemetery, or Czechoslovak to be precise, cemetery in France that is related to the World War One and World War Two as well. And we are visiting like all kind of cemeteries and memorials just to see. It's like you are traveling the whole world. If you are in northern France, you visit a memorial of Welsh guys, of Welsh soldiers, Scottish soldiers. In few kilometers, you stumble upon a South African cemetery, Indian monument. You see, of course, Canadians, British of all sorts, French, of course. Visit the German cemetery, Czech, Polish, you name it. Like all the nations were fighting in this very small area of land for kind of nonsense war, if you like see it from today's perspective. And what I'm trying to collect all the data I can for our publishing, like to bring it back to the people that visit our site, to give them like not only the idea what it looks like and some photos. This is not the main point. The main point is to give them the feeling that I have when I visit the places. And if you visit, especially the First World War battlefields, although the Second World War was more bloody than the First World War, but I feel the Great War was more brutal from the perspective of the normal soldier. And seeing all those crosses and visiting cemeteries with tens of thousands and dead bodies and even more inscribed that were never found, that perished during like the battle. It's a unique feeling, and we want to give people this perspective and look at these battles from the eyes of people of the 20th century, of the beginning of the 20th century, not by the eyes of the 21st century man, because our morale and our feelings are way different than they used to be in the beginning of the previous century. And we need to understand it and to understand why people volunteered to join the army, volunteered to go to fight in trench war of the Western Front and what they experienced, and to understand why they left, for example, in my case, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and to fight on the other side. We need to look from their perspective, from their timeline, and from what they did know about the war and what the feelings were in them when they joined it, and what was their motivation, of course. So this is my motivation why I do it, and as I said, I'm doing it for 30 years. The website is going very well, and this is for me the biggest feeling when I go to all these travels and all these meetings and gatherings. I see people that I connected. Those became friends. They are friends with me. They are friends among each other, and we have still a lot to talk about, even if we don't see us that often anymore, because life has its own path. And I would like to say that I also remember friends that are not with us anymore, because we used to go there together, and those people died recently. And so all these travels are also memories of the recent people and recent friends, not just the wars and the soldiers and the heroes from the past.
You've said some really interesting pieces here around the motivation for developing the website and your motivations for visiting the battlefields, whether they are the First World War or Second World War. There are two parts that I'd like to highlight and talk a bit more about. The first is that these cemeteries and monuments and memorials are places of community. Many people think about them as being stagnant sites where the dead rest, and that's true. However, it has been my experience that they're very much places of living connection, and our meeting is a prime example of that, where we didn't plan to have a meeting at this particular cemetery. You happened to be there for your reasons, I was there for mine. We struck up a conversation, and that is what leads me to my second observation about what you said, is that oftentimes these meeting places lead to conversations that are significant and important and very deep. And they bypass the shallow topics like the weather, although that might be part of it, or something that's more benign, and almost immediately people start talking about what does war mean, making observations about the numbers of war dead of all countries. And very quickly in these conversations, people come to see that we have so much in common, that we are much more alike than we are different. And the stage or the backdrop for that are these commemorative spaces and these places of violence or conflict that are now peaceful. And that has been a really remarkable part of my research and my own visits as a pilgrim or as a tourist to these places, because I'm always running into people like you from other countries or from other parts of my own country in the United States, and we end up having amazing conversations that they're substantive about important topics. And I wonder if you have any additional thoughts about that as you have traveled these landscapes.
Sure, I fully agree with you, and I have some amazing discussions with the people in one place where the Canadians fought on the battlefield. There is like the caribou on top of the hill, and really like scarf landscape beneath with still landmines present, and there are some sheep running around and so on. And there are people from Canada who are working there, or like they are volunteering to be there. They are not working as an employees. And we had some amazing conversations with them on the same week when we met together in this American cemetery. We also been to Tinnecot near Passendale in Belgium, and that was really amazing experience for me because it's the largest British cemetery. You see there is like 12,000 dead, I think, buried on this place, and 35,000 more inscribed on the walls that perished, and we've been there and we've seen a group of kids running all over the cemetery looking for people, for like the dead names inscribed on the crosses and or on the stones. And we were kind of curious what's going on there. And it was some sort of British military school for the youngsters. And they took them to this battlefield to see what's the price of freedom and what's the price of peace. And they were looking for soldiers with some specific awards, like the Victoria Crosses. I think there are like 6 of them on this cemetery, and I was looking for them as well. So I was a little ahead of them, and I was helping them to find. And then every one of them need to prepare a presentation about this specific soldier and his achievements and why did he receive the Victoria Cross as the highest military order of United Kingdom. And so we basically joined this group and we went with them and we listened to their priest, which was among the adults accompanying the kids. And at the very end, I even talked to the priest, and at the end they joined and they start to sing on like by the white cross, which is on every like British cemetery. And it was very moving experience. Like we didn't expect this to happen. You expect to be on the cemetery alone, mostly on like military cemeteries. You don't expect too much people to be there, and not this kind of connection. And it was really moving for me. And we also get to know somebody from the other part of the world, as you mentioned. And it is for me like the feeling if I'm walking past the graves and I see the names and the age of the soldiers. And the more older I am, the less my age I see there. But, especially in the First World War, you see guys from their 40s, even is being dead on that cemetery. But you see those guys being 18, 20, 21 dying. And this needs to be, I think people should go to these places and to see it. Probably may be them, it may be their kids or their grandkids. And, the society that promotes war and pushes their kids to the war to achieve whatever reason it is, they need to understand this is the ultimate price that these people will pay. And I think this is not so common. People are, calling for war quite often, but they don't see the price, and the price is this. So this is something that I would promote, and I would ask every single school and every single like parent with their kids to at least once do some kind of visit like this and to see the price. You know, and maybe it changes little something in your head when you cry or rally for war the next time something happens which could be negotiated, which could be emailed at the end, and not just 10,000 or 10 million people dead at the end.
Yeah, you're right. Going to these places is sobering and is there's no excuse after visiting to say I didn't know what the price would be. And and I think the pilgrimages that have happened to these places the ones I know about the most are after the First World War, but pilgrimages have occurred to military cemeteries throughout time. Even King George V, who was visiting after World War I, said there's no greater advocate of peace than someone who has visited as a pilgrim to these sites of war. And I do think that in a former time, these were battle sites and sites of violence, but they're actually peace sites now, and they do provoke thoughts about what kind of world we could live in addition to thoughts around what the price is to have gotten peace, but to think about the kind of world we want for the future.
Definitely. Also, like the First World War, the Great War, was about the end of all wars, and it basically just prepared the ground for the second and the most like violent war we've seen so far. Something went horribly wrong there. Like I think that the parties forgot what they had to undertake to and what they had to sacrifice in order to defend the peace and go back to where they started basically. And after like few years and 2 decades they did it all over again. And we've seen this repeating scheme on and on with every next war that happens. And this is something that I think the mankind should in one day abolish completely. Like we need to try to understand each other and talk to each other and not to fight about every single problem that we see along the way. And this is something like if people see my name related to the war valka.cz, website, they say, oh, you have to adore the war and you are pro. And I say, I'm probably the biggest anti war guy you can imagine. I just, by describing it, I'm not loving it. I truly hate all those people being dead. And I just take the burden on me to describe it and to bring it back to the people's attention and to the people's memory that this happened, and don't let those people don't let those soldiers die for nothing, because that would be the biggest problem of that all. Like, we perceive that, especially on the Western Front, the US soldiers and the British and the French were fighting for, let's say, like preserving the state and preserving the peace. And in the Second World War, there was definitely like the evil side and the good side. And although it was not perfect, people tend to say, okay, but they did bomb as well, and they did the nuclear bombing and stuff like that. This is not the point. There was like horrible evil on one side and the good on the other side. And we need to remember the price of fighting for the good. And when it happens and when the evil needs to be destroyed, then this is the price. And I think it's for many of the soldiers, they probably did the best they could, and they are remembered until now. If they would live, they would probably, be normal guys somewhere, and probably not so many people would remember them after 100, 120 years. But, we go to the cemeteries even after 110, 120 years, and we do remember them because they were fighting for something that they believed is the good. And this is something that is still very hard to grasp for me. And it's completely, even after 30 years, I don't understand where the violence comes from the people. I don't understand how people can volunteer to be the concentration camp guards. This is something that's completely beyond me. I don't understand it. I don't understand the violence that happened in Ukraine right now, where the people are being tortured and killed and so on. Where it comes from, why there is so much hatred in the people. But on the other side, I have to admire those people who are able to stand up and fight when it's necessary.
You mentioned when you were in the cemetery with the British school group that they were looking for the graves of those soldiers that had received the Victoria
The
Cross.
Victoria Cross.
Are there times when you're traveling to the Western Front where you are looking for certain soldiers' graves or where certain soldiers fought?
Yeah, in the recent trip in 2020, made like special trip to several cemeteries where our pilots from Second World War from the RAF were buried, and for me it was very special because for maybe 40, 50 years we have in our bookshelf the books of memories about these pilots. One was written by the guy who was lucky enough to get out of the plane where others died. The other book was written by the guy who survived in a dinghy in the boat and other perished. So we have recollection of the exact events that happened. And we went to Netherlands on, then there are like one memorial and one cemetery where our Czechoslovak airmen are buried. And we were standing on the beach or next to the beach by this memorial, and we were reading the book, and we were reading from the book how it happened, how they get shut down into the channel, surviving 3 days on a dinghy just to get back to occupied Europe, and not to England. And it was very, very moving for us because it's like personal story. It's a story behind the grave. It's a story behind the name on the grave. And it's very easy for us to do it about the Czech and Czechoslovak soldiers because all of them are known. There is a list of those hundreds of soldiers killed, and most of them are somehow already researched. And the same happens when we go to the British cemeteries. We are looking for some higher awarded soldiers like Victoria Crosses and with the pilots of DFO and other medals, because we can find at least something about them. At least the citation, why did they receive the Medal of Honor or Victoria Cross, or something more. If we are looking on normal soldier, I don't want to say it like that, but like common soldier without any special awards, it's sometimes very hard to see or to find any story behind them. So this is more like, it's easier for us to do it this way, but we also take a lot of pictures and a lot of notes for the future research, because my backlog is like at least 5 times my lifetime. So I'm not able to do everything that I've collected. I'm pretty sure about that. But I'm still taking pictures and I'm writing the names and the dates and trying to find some information about these soldiers. And doesn't matter if it's from World War One or the Second World War. So we are looking for those like more famous names, but there are already written stories about them usually. Even if you go to the American Cemetery, you have the book with at least the most famous ones and those mentioned in some movies and stuff like that. But on top of that, there are many, many unheard stories and many names that we would like to give the story and give the soldier more to be remembered about by his relatives or his unit and his commander or something like that, if we would be able, or if we will be able to find something in the archives.
Would it be okay if we talked a bit about the Czechoslovak Legion? Uh, this is a interesting part of First World War history that is often relatively unknown. It's been written about in a book called Dreams of a Small Great Nation, about the birth of Czechoslovakia. And the Czechoslovak Legion transferred from the Eastern Front to the Western Front. And so some people may say, how did Czechoslovak soldiers get into the Western Front? What was going on that occurred? And so any information you can offer about that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. I I'm completely aware that some people will have problem to find Czechoslovakia or now Czech Republic on the map of Europe, and that's completely normal. But at that time, before the First World War started, we were part of Austro-Hungarian Empire. And although there was some fights to be or to have some more standalone nation or to be more like, on the same level as Hungarians did with the Austrian Empire, they somehow became almost equal in this. The Czech and Slovaks didn't have this power. And so in the late 19th century, there was a big movement to improve the status of Czechs and Slovak in Austrian Empire, although it was not that bad as we sometimes try to look at it from today's perspective. They say, oh, the bad emperor, and they were, taking all stuff from us. It was not that easy at the time. But certainly Czechs wanted to be a separate country and standalone country. And as soon as the war started, and the follower to the throne was assassinated in Sarajevo, and his wife as well, and she was from her family has a castle really next to my village, so very very close to us. So as soon as the war started, there were many Czechs and Slovak living abroad in France, in Russia, in United Kingdom, and in USA. And as soon as the war started, they wanted to join the opposing armies, like the French army or the Russian army. They were leaving to Serbia, which was one of the first fighting against Austro-Hungarian Empire because of the assassination. So they were drafted to the Austro-Hungarian army, but if they had the chance, they left, and they left the front line and affected to the enemy. The same happened with the people living in those countries. Like in Russia, there were about I think 90,000 people of Czech origin or Czechoslovak origin. The same was in France. So these people, they decided they will join these armies to fight and to promote the idea of Czechoslovakia, of the new country that needs to be built after the dissolution of Austro-Hungarian Empire. And those countries, they didn't believe them, because you are coming from Austro-Hungarian Empire and this is the enemy and they are fighting us. So are you a spy, or what are you trying to do? And those people, they were so agitated and they were so full of belief that they can help them to fight the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Germany, of course, to finally get the country they were dreaming of, the Czechoslovakia. Or at that time, I don't know if they even perceived the Czechs and Slovak living together in one country, or if they're fighting for Czech country and Slovak country separate. But they did. And in France, there was I marked a note about 250 people in the first company, Nazdar, and it was a small company of 4 platoons. But as soon as 1915, they were in combat north of Arras, and they were fighting for the village of La Target. And out of 250, about 75 were alive and unwounded, and the rest of them was wounded, either or 42 of them were dead. And you take a unit of 250 people, and you see how they devoted their lives and how they wanted to fight for the freedom of their non-existing country. And so the France start to understand that. At that time, they were part of Legion étrangère, the foreign legion. Then they start to build a specific Czech unit from the Czechoslovak people coming to France. And as you mentioned, there were 3 groups of people moved from Russia as well to join these. And at the end of the war, it was a brigade with 2 regiments of Czechoslovak soldiers. So this was one significant part, and the other part was in Russia. And probably everybody heard the story of Czechoslovak Legion fighting their way through because they couldn't get back to the country because of Bolshevik Revolution, the Communist Revolution, and they were fighting against them. So they had to fight their long way all across the Russia to the Siberia to board the ship that will take them to the United States and then home. So they have to travel all around the world just to get home from the First World War. So this is the story that built the foundation of Czechoslovak Republic, and on both sides, not just the Russian Legion or the French Legion, but they were also in Italy. And I don't want to say it, and it's very often perceived, and I've seen it in the past, that people, when this like started the new interest in the Great War, the people start to looking for if their predecessors were in legions, if they're legionnaires. But they were the good guys, are perceived as the good
Mhm.
guys. But then there were many, many soldiers in Austro-Hungarian army that they simply followed the promise that they gave, that they will, be the soldiers in this army. It gave them some kind of position, some kind of pay, and other stuff, and they stayed in that army and they fought alongside the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And I think it's not fair to perceive one part of these as a good guys and the rest of as a traitors or the bad guys because they fought for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I think it's not correct. They were just, different views, different perspectives, different needs at that time. And after the war, all these guys came back and they built a special army, the Czechoslovak army, that almost immediately had to join a fight with Hungary, with Poland, with the Germans on the border of Czechoslovakia, which were not happy to be part of Czechoslovakia. They immediately started to do problems. So 1919, 1920, 1921, there were fights. And without the experience of the Czechoslovak legions and the guys from Austro-Hungarian army, we would not be able to repel these fights, or we would have much bigger problems. So I think after the war, even the French generals who helped to build Czechoslovak army, were surprised how good and how skilled these soldiers are. And there wasn't much to teach them because we have our own commanders from the World War One, and we were able to build this army to be a very reliable and strong force until it was betrayed in Munich in 1938.
I think you're highlighting an interesting point about all wars, but World War One in particular, and that is the different motivations for soldiers in fighting. Some were fighting for the empire, some were fighting for a new nation state that had been brewing for nearly 100 years, the idea of an autonomous Czechoslovak state where they would be free from the overlord empire. And so it's not so simple to only look at battle histories and say this soldier fought for this army or this one for this army. There are many reasons why they're fighting, and it's exactly why your website and your research and your visits to the battlefield are so important to better understand the individual soldiers and why they were there.
Yes, this is exactly, if you go to these cemeteries, at the end you will find that all deaths are equal. They are all dead. And doesn't matter if they were fighting for this empire or this kingdom or this, state or this ism, if it's communism, fascism, they are all dead. And, even I think those people did not necessarily believed in those ideas, many of them. If you take the, SS units, they certainly did believe and they were the bad guys. I'm not saying a word about them. But on top of like these normal soldiers, especially in the World War One, which was less manipulated in the way of different opinions and worldviews and politics in this disgusting manner, they were more like, you know, there was a note about the Czech soldiers or Czechoslovak soldiers that they are not happy if they hear about Austro-Hungarian Empire winning a battle, but they are also not happy if they are hearing about Austro-Hungarian Empire losing the battle. You know, we were on the losing end of both, you know, and if it happens that that there is like Czechoslovak soldiers on one side of the front fighting against Czechoslovak soldiers on the other side of the front, that's the worst you can imagine, and you know it because the bloodiest battles of America history were when Americans were fighting Americans, you know, Antietam and Bull Run and battlefields like that. Those are the bloodiest places of America history, not Omaha Beach. And it's very hard, and I really don't want to judge if somebody went to the other side of the front to join the enemy, or if they stayed and fought for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It doesn't make them bad, in my opinion, because we are not from the 21st century. We cannot judge them. You know, we were not living in their times. We didn't have the problems of economy and growing up in a country in the 19th century and stuff like that. To be in the army was some sort of like, you know, payment and like certainty that you would have as a soldier for you and for your family to provide. So it's not that easy. We know how it ended. We know that one side lost the battle and the empire was dissolved and there are new countries created and everything went well. But they didn't. In 1915 or 1916, they didn't have the knowledge. And so we cannot judge them that they didn't make the call. And, you know, also there was a lot of bad decision in creating these countries with some areas, you know, as I mentioned, we almost immediately had to fight against Poland and against Hungary, and what happened with the German areas of Czechoslovakia, which was like the prelude to Second World War. So there were some bad decisions as well. So this is something we need to take into account and really don't have like black and white view of the world, because this is not helping. And if we even with the increase or rise of the fascism in Germany, there is a lot to understand about that, about the unemployment, about the feelings after the First World War, and you know, stuff like that. It's understandable, but it's not something I would use to apologize, you know, those people, because at the end they made it completely horrible by the choices they did. And even after the war, it took some time for them to realize what truly happened. And you know the stories of people in a city living right next to the concentration camp saying, we didn't know. But it was a tourist area. There was a zoo next to the concentration camp. How did you not know? This is, you know, this is beyond this debate probably and beyond my understandings. But you know, just to judge people that they were, you know, fighting on this side or this side, this is something I don't want to do.
And I think I've reviewed your website and I can see your intention on the website to this exact point where it actually, if it's okay, I'd like to just kind of highlight some of the aspects of the website. You have articles, you've included articles written by various people on all eras, well, at least back to 3000 BC, eras of warfare. You have information about different countries that have been involved in warfare, which is the entire world at some point. There's information about weaponry and equipment, units, geographic information. You have information about crimes against humanity, book and movie recommendations. So it's a very comprehensive website. And I'm not a tech person, so this seems like a massive feat to be able to put all of this together. What has it been like as a person who has developed the website and you're overseeing it? What are the technical aspects of it that make it unique and that appeal to users?
I'm like always viewing this site with two different views. We have the articles. It's like blog. You can read one article daily. Sometimes we recycle the old articles just to remind about the work that we did in the past, and they are still worth reading. And the point here is that we are not denying any opinion, unless it's really like stupid one. I mean, like, no promote of fascism or communism will go through us. This is not happening. No Holocaust denial and stuff like that. No. But on top of that, if you want to say that it was bad to bomb Hiroshima with nuclear weapons, go on and make your point and make your reasons and show us the reasons. And let's have a debate on that, because there is usually not one truth in the history. The history is usually written by the victory parties, and there is certain truth about that we need to look from different angles, and those angles usually bring up the debate and help you understand more about the topic. And just at the end, you can say, okay, but those were not the eyes of the 20th century people fighting in total war in the Second World War. They need to end this war forever. So this might be the one end of the debate. And so we are publishing these articles, and the other part, it developed as a discussion forum. We used to talk about stuff, and then we start to realize that we need to give it some kind of form, some it's if you're a librarian, you need to describe the book. So if you are writing about people, about soldiers, about weapons, about units, you need to give some basic details: the date of birth, the place of birth, the name of the unit, the history of the unit, the predecessor, the successor of the unit, the superior unit, and so on. So we start to build this templates, the basic data that you need to collect about that specific topic before you start to write anything more about it. And it grew. It grew very very much. Now we have about like 150 different areas with these definitions, and we are able to collect them to connect them together, which creates another set of information. If you look on Wikipedia and you read a story about the guy being born in Prague, and you go to Prague, you usually don't see him listed there, because somebody needs to go and manually list it there because it's text. But on our side, if you mark somebody being born in Prague and you go to Prague, it immediately pops up there because it's connected. There are like objects and relations between those objects. Somebody was born, is the relationship, object, Prague, city, place, whatever. And the same is with units. And so we are able to create like structure of unit to specific date, because we track when one unit was assigned to another unit and when it was unassigned to another unit, or it was disbanded after being destroyed and rebuilt after being destroyed, and so on. So we created a system, and we spent a lot of time building the system of these objects and translations. You cannot do serious work in history without building the system first. And this is something what I feel is quite missing by the historians. They can write amazing books, they can research a lot of information from the archives, but they are very often missing the system. So they are writing about unit that did not exist anymore. It was renamed, but in the book, the old name of the unit still appear. And if you look for the unit, you will not find it because the name is different, and at the date it did not exist. The same with commanders. They mentioned the highest rank of the commander, but he was not at that rank during the unit, during the commandment of the unit, and so on. So we try to be as precise as possible with the subject, and everybody is interested in completely different areas. So we have people interested in Russia and Soviet army. We have people interested in Germany, in United States, United Kingdom, in weapons, in military medals and awards, in collecting them and analyzing them. And I'm the IT guy. I love to enable people to do whatever they need to do with the data. and to build new connections and to build visualization and to show it as a map, as a org chart, and to connect the data, to extract the data and to build new information from that. So this is something that still surprises me, and truly there are people with me there for 26 or 27 years already, and they come on daily basis to, just to have this little, we call it our OCD world. You cannot do it without having some sort of mental OCD because, you want to do it right. You want to have this aligned and properly named and properly researched and all the sources stated, and to work like that in this little universe of ours. And we quickly ended all the debates, like what was the best tank of the World War II and stuff like that, because it has no solution. There is like too many opinions on that, and there is little vague definition of the question itself. So you cannot debate that. And after a couple, iterations, there are some mistakes that people tend to repeat without thinking about them because they read it somewhere, they watched it on telly, and there's usually a very low level of documents these days. So it's way better to stop these discussions and have people work on really this serious matter, which gives them the ability to do the research themselves and to compare the data and to start thinking about it. Okay, was it really like that dangerous ship, that Bismarck? Because it certainly looks so on the paper, but it was sunk on its first voyage, so probably wasn't that good, And there are some myths about all these events of different wars, and this the guy saying that he killed thousands of people on Omaha Beach, and okay, let's go to the Omaha Beach. Let's go to this very spot where he said he was, and look on the beach. Look what area you can see. We can give you the exact calculations how many soldiers could have been there at that date, and we know the exact amount of people being wounded and killed on that day. And simply the numbers do not add together. This story isn't true. It's fake. Sorry. It's nice that you remember it this way, but you do not remember it correctly. So we really want to work on the system that it's able to validate itself. We cite the sources, and the system as we build it is able to do the cross checks between those topics. If you say this guy was in this unit on one side in his CV or his profile, then the unit needs to have these dates as well. And if the unit date do differ, then we need to find what's the problem, who has the wrong data. Did we do some kind of mistake during typing, or the sources are not clear, the archives do interpret it different way, and it gives you another impulse to go to the archive or to look for another information. And this gives all of us the vast ability to grow and to learn more about different aspects and different areas and topics. I'm speaking just for myself, but I think I can speak for all my colleagues that we simply love this work, and it's something that stays. Even as I mentioned, our colleagues who already passed. This is something that even after 10 or 15 years, you come to the website and you see their articles and you remember them. So it's something that stays after you leave this world. And it's my biggest scare. And also my friends are asking me, like, what will happen if you're not here? And I say, it may happen. And this is why I'm still looking for new colleagues and new members to join. It's free, it's open, it's like Wikipedia. It's just, you have to follow the rules that, as I mentioned, just be as precise as possible. Join our, it's technical, but those guys are sometimes 60, 70 years old. They are able to cope with it, they are able to work with it. I try to do it as much user friendly as possible. I don't care about the design and looks and fancy stuff and Facebooks, and I don't want that. I really want the people to focus on the work on the website. And this is something that I think I was successful in those 30 years, coordinating and debating and programming and developing all this stuff, so we can just work and bring the knowledge. And maybe if I may say, last thing about this is that I am fighting hard against AI recently, because this is not something bringing us the value right now, although people are able to use it for research, for gathering of data, for processing some kind of data. It's something that sucks the knowledge from us and sucks the will, because we need to be connected to the people. We need to be talking to the people. We need to explain if we make an error, what happened and how we fix it. And somebody can answer, this date you have is not correct. My grandfather was born on this date. And we say, hey, that's super, send us more pictures and stuff like that. If there is AI between us and the reader, we don't know what kind of mismatch will get to the user, because AI is statistical model. It's not something thinking and understanding fully what we are saying there. So we cannot guarantee the data. And if we don't see the user, we are losing our main area and the sense of doing stuff. Because then we do it for ourselves. Of course, as I said, this is our OCD world, and we are investing money. We are building it and we are spending our money to keep it alive. But we still hope that there are people, and there are like 10,000 people probably every day coming to our site, plus hundred thousands of bots and AI scrapers stealing the data. So we hope that this will move on, and we will get past Facebook and Instagram and AI, and we will be still doing it in 20, 30 years from now, because I believe it makes sense and there is a hell of a lot of work done there. We have 8,000 articles, 250,000 topics in several thousand of categories. So we've done a lot so far.
Yeah, that's extensive. That's quite a legacy that you're leaving with the site. If someone is interested in contributing to the site, what does that look like? They contact you as the site owner, or is there a peer review process where someone can submit an article and it's reviewed by a team? What happens?
It usually depends on the technical background of the user. If he's able to create an account, let's say on Facebook, he's probably able to create account on our site and just to confirm his email and start doing things. And we have a list of our colleagues who tend to be moderating the new incomers or new users, and we try to help them and to explain them, okay, you can create your first post and we will tell you if it's okay. If it's not, we move it. We explain to you what's the naming conventions, what the translations. You can do only English, you can do only Czech if you don't feel translating between these two languages, because the site is mirrored. We have two versions. One is primary in Czech and Slovak. We don't distinguish these two languages. We understand each other and we are friends, no matter what the politicians say. And then there is an English site, which is, as I mentioned, 250,000 topics behind. I'm unable to translate it all. I would go bankrupt if I tried to do it. So I'm slowly translating, and the guys are slowly translating it into English. But you can just write in English and we will do the rest. And it's more like, usually this is the biggest challenge when the people arrive to our site. It's too big. There are too many topics, too many areas, too many things to cover. They don't know where to start. And this is the first question that I ask them if they contact me directly over email. Where do you want to go? What is your motivation? What's your interest? What do you have any specific knowledge that you want to share, or do you want to learn? Because we can accommodate anybody. If you just want to learn, if you straight from the high school and want to learn about history, join us. We have plenty of books, plenty of materials. We have plenty of archive documents. We have plenty of work. We have more work that we will be ever able to finish. So we can give you any area where you can start if you prefer to work on the soldiers, on the medals, on the units. We have it, and we have this huge system behind it. It allows you to write in Japanese, in Russian, in English, in any alphabet you can think of. So whether if you are from United States or from India or Bangladesh, we don't care. We can certainly accommodate and welcome you in our team, because every country has some military history. Every country has its own soldiers and heroes and kings and past, and we want to know about it, and we want to share the knowledge to the rest of the world. So this is the approach that I have. So contact me directly over email, or do the registration, do your first post, just say, hello, I'm interested in this and this and this, or I'm well-known historian and I want to join your ranks, and we say, yippee! So let's do it. And we have among us a lot of book publishers and authors and historians and so on. So, and soldiers and people from police and armed forces of all kind. So everybody is welcome.
Sites like yours often are a first place that people go to learn information that oftentimes prompts them to travel to the battlefield or to a cemetery or a memorial. And so I'm always interested to hear about how these sites develop, because they really do impact people who use them and are often this platform that people launch from when they decide they want to take 2 weeks and go visit the Western Front, for example, or some other battlefield site. Do you hear from people using the site that you have influenced them to travel to the specific locations?
Yes, I think we are like small community in Czech Republic. There, we are 10 million people altogether, and with the interest of military history, they are a small portion of that. And so, after a couple of years, you probably almost everybody interested in this area has visited the site one way or another, like to look for information or to share their travel experience. And there is one portion of the site where I write my travel reports. So everybody who is looking for 1 week, 2 weeks holiday in France, in Switzerland, in Germany, in Holland or Netherlands, in United Kingdom or in United States can go and look on my itinerary. And how long did it take me to drive from here to there? How long I've spent in a museum, so they can plan. And I'm kind of freak. Whatever museum I visit, I take thousands of pictures, and then I take me 2 years to process them and so on. But you have an idea. If this guy has spent 3 hours in the museum, it's probably worth it to go there. And then there are small museums and big ones and cemeteries. And so we try to describe them, and we talk about it. And as I said, then we form a group and we go together. Or we go separate. After, like, I go this year and the other guys couldn't go, but they will go next year by themselves in my footsteps. So, and they come back and they write their report. Maybe they've seen something more, something different. They at least create the topics for the museums they've seen. They mention what good exposition was there, what's interesting to see, if it has been closed, maybe if the owner was not so cool. It happens, So we share this topics, and I know that there are like travel agencies who we worked with to help them to build their travel to some places in France, in Normandy, and so on. And for example, I'm planning a trip to the United States in following years to do the East Coast and New York and Washington, Virginia, and Kentucky, Tennessee, and back to the New York, probably 3 weeks at least. So we do share this travel information, and hopefully people will find it, because it's nice article. If you publish it as an article, and as we've been to the United States in 2019, it was a 3 weeks trip, and it was like 3 huge articles about this trip, like what you can see in the museums, how to get to the museums that are part of military base, because this is not common in Europe. In Europe, you have like museum which is somewhere in the middle of the city or outside the city. But in the United States, many of the museums are inside the military base, which is something not easily accessible if you are outside of the United States as a citizen, if you're not a citizen of the United States. So there are problems, and there are way how to work with them, and this is also very helpful to share. So I'm very looking forward to any information anybody is sharing on our side, because it's always helpful. And there are people going to the countries that I would probably never go, or I would be scared to go. Or, for example, Australia is completely amazing continent, but there are so many things trying to kill you there. That's completely no go for me, and I admit it. There are spiders and snakes and stuff like that. So yeah, like, let's share the information. And as I said in the very beginning, I consider our site to be like a roof with all the information about military history to be covered. And I don't want to go to Facebook and to 1,000 different sites to look for this information. When I'm planning the trip, I have map with several thousands of points, all over the world where I want to go. But after that, I just want to have one site where I can see all the information on one place.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share about the website and the intricacies of the website. And I'm going to spend some more time on the website. I mean, I could see that there were a lot of articles, but I did not know that there were, did you say 250,000 uh,
Topics
topics?
behind that.
That's intense. And I appreciate your knowledge about the Czechoslovak soldiers during and after World War I and your thoughts on your travels to the Western Front. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to talk to me about what inevitably is something that connects all of us, which is that we all have soldiers and ancestors and friends and relatives that have fought in these wars, particularly the First and Second World War. And so when we visit these places that are either the final resting place for soldiers or service members or the monuments that commemorate them, we end up running into each other. And that is a really special aspect of the work that both of us are doing. And so I appreciate meeting you and hearing from you today.
I thank you for inviting me, and it was really. I'm really glad that we finally find the time to do the recording and the meeting. I was looking for three years now, and it was really a pleasure to talk to you. And one last comment: I've seen that you posted the video from the Vimy, which has today is the day the Canadians attacked on the Vimy Ridge. And I find this memorial to be the most beautiful war memorial that is. It's like the crying mother Canada on the side of the memorial. It's truly unique place in the western battlefield, and it's always for me honor to go there and to look for this place. It's really amazing.